I'm glad to be catching Mark in Texas. But Mark, you said that you have offices or you have creative spaces in two other places.
Yes, my creative team, I mainly draw from New York City, and I will usually meet up there in Ken Billington's office. He has a wonderful office right on in the theater district. And then I also do all my recording in Los Angeles. Typically, there's East West United. There's some various studios on Sunset Boulevard. They're just classic, great studios that I record there. So
I
just
love
depend.
United Space. This is such a great space.
It really is. It's just wonderful, and these are just classic studios that Frank Sinatra recorded it in. The Mamas and Papas, all sorts of vintage great TV themes were done there, and I want to work with the best people and on all my projects, and that's where I can find them and record them.
So we're finding you in the realm of what current adventures, Mark? What are you currently up to?
Well, I've just opened three different Christmas shows out at Six Flags Over Texas in Arlington, Texas. And that's ending my journey this year. I've actually produced and written 10 different shows for that theme
Wow.
park this year. So it's been quite a busy year. I also have a couple of shows running down at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, a long running Majesty of Christmas and Looney Tunes Christmas. And then, of course, I've got Christmas shows running in Branson and Pigeon Forge and Myrtle Beach with Dolly Parton's both her Stampede and Pirates Voyage shows.
So a lot of people probably have been to your shows, didn't know they were your shows, and thought, I wonder how in the world this happens. I mean, I
I
think of
certainly
that a
hope
little
so.
bit. That they
Yeah.
go to it or they wonder.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they want both. They go to, and I mean really what it's about is if I can help, produce a wonderful time for them and their family, hopefully enjoying the show, then I've done my job.
I grew up in Southern California, so for me, a similar metaphor was I worked at Disneyland for a couple of years, and there was
Oh, really?
so
Excellent.
much creative production. I was instead a ride operator, not a fabulous performer there. But
Okay.
you get that people see that as such of the background of their lives. I'm really excited about talking about how you've ended up in this and the many other things that you've done. Now,
Okay.
where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Texas?
No, my both my parents are native Texans, so I grew up more in St. Louis, Missouri, and but we spent a lot of time in Texas. What got me down here, there was a great music school on North Texas, UNT up in Denton, and that got me to this area, and I started getting work immediately, and I've stayed here. Um, my first job was with Six Flags in the what they called Six Flags Mid America at the time. I think it's just called Six Flags St. Louis now. But that was one of my first work experiences, and really in entertainment was I got a job with the crew on one of the shows, and then I was a piano accompanist for two of the different shows, and did their audition tour and a couple of different things. So that just kept growing, which gave
I'm
me
going to
a
back you up
start.
even further. So,
Oh,
growing up
goodness.
then in
Okay.
St. Louis, were your parents creative? Were they performers? Were they?
My dad was not, but my mom actually taught speech and drama. And so growing up, my sister and I would always, right after school, we would go to play rehearsal and our musical rehearsal. And I watched a lot of rehearsals as a kid, and I feel that uh, has is in me. It's registered ever since, and so a lot of things I think come naturally to me, or it makes sense. But really, I think I've just always been around theater production for my whole
Well,
life.
and had parents that were supportive, because some people have the journey story that they love being creative, but mom and dad said, you must be an engineer, you must be a lawyer, you must be and didn't
Well,
get the creative journey.
yeah, I did have that a little bit, because I'm sure my parents were, well, how are you going to make a living? And but they were very supportive in with piano lessons, and I had a great high school experience. There was a lot of I could take music theory in high school, and um, so I got a great training ground, and I started really getting work as a pianist really when I was still in high school. So, my parents couldn't say a lot because I was actually making money, So
Wasn't
um,
just a hobby.
it was into hobby. So I did major in music in college, and I switched around a couple of different ways. Once I discovered writing and arranging, I thought, well, this is something I can spend long periods of time doing, and that's what became my focus. That's what got me down to UNT to study, and led to my career.
And that's continuing to be a bit rare for kids to realize that they can compose or even have music theory in high school. That
Hmm.
oftentimes that's not even part of the mix, which is one of
Yeah,
my big bugaboos with all the wonderful things that happen in high school music. But oftentimes that they both skip theory and they skip learning how to write in their own voice and their own music.
yeah, and it was just a good time. It was before there were so many stringent core educational demands, and so I took music theory and jazz theory. There was a great orchestra in my high school that I got to do some piano solos with. I also learned cello, and so yeah, it was just a well-rounded education with high school. And then I took two sets of private lessons. One was classical piano, one was jazz piano. So I just had a great training ground, and that definitely gave me a head start on,
But
as I
before
got
you
into
ended up
college.
at the theme park world, what did you think you were going to do with it?
I didn't know for sure. I knew that this was music came very quickly to me, and it's something I really enjoyed, and so I don't know. I kept pursuing it. I really didn't even discover writing and arranging until I was in college, and but once I did, it's like because I was advanced enough with piano to that my teacher said you need to spend 4 to 5 hours a day practicing, or you're really not going to get much better because you're at this level. And that was very hard for me. But then once I started arranging and writing out arrangements, I thought, oh, I could do this 4, 6, 8 hours a day. That would not bother me. And so I just went after it. I knew what level I had to work at, and then certainly transferring to UNT really, I was with some phenomenal students there and from around the world, and that gave me the incentive and the drive to, be as excellent as I could be.
So how did you end up? You mentioned earlier that you ended up then doing heading into the theme park world. How did that step happen?
Well, what happened was at the first college, I went 3 years to a Millikan University. That's a small private
Oh
school in the middle of Illinois, and I made a deal with four great singers there. I said, "Look, I'll do all the arranging if you all agree to rehearse." And we did our own program. And we were our own little group, and we performed at homecoming and different events. And then we did a recital at the end of the year that I taped that audio and presented it to the VP head producer at Six Flags to say, hey, look, I've been writing and arranging, and I want you to hear this. And the timing was good as I transferred down to Denton. They had an opening at the Six Flags Over Texas show. So for the music director and to write those, it was a Southern Palace show and a smaller saloon show, and they offered that opportunity to me really during my senior year of college.
Oh, wow.
Um, and then the following year, it expanded to 4 or 5 parks, and it expanded
Wow.
quickly.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
that's a
So it was a
big
great
journey
opportunity.
coming right out of college.
It was, and in many ways it was hard because I was younger and like, who's this kid? And, there were some challenges to it. But you've got to take opportunities when they arise. So I got some great training at UNT quickly, and just kind of, embraced it and kept getting opportunities. At the same time, I felt, well, the theme park business is so fluky. You have a lot of work one year, and then they'll run the same shows over the second year, and you're sitting
And hyper
around.
seasonal too, right? So a
Yes,
big
very
chunk of their
much.
life is the holidays and summer.
Yeah. And so I got involved with educational publishing. So what that is choral arranging for is print publishing, and I work with a company called Hal Leonard Print Publishers. They're the world's largest publisher out of Milwaukee, and I started getting opportunities to arrange for them, and I've done that ever since. And you don't make a ton of money on one arrangement, but it's like developing your catalog. And so I now have like about 3,600 choral products in print and available, and sell probably around 500,000 copies of music a year around the world.
Wow.
So that's been
And
a
they're
nice
almost,
steady income.
I was going to say they're almost evergreen. I mean, I'm assuming that some pop
Yeah.
because there's popular songs going on, but it's really having, in this world of non-evergreen music, an evergreen catalog.
Oh, most definitely. And it's interesting. My best-selling choral is Bohemian Rhapsody, that I actually arranged, I think in 1996, when it came out in Wayne's World, at first. And it has continued. I think I'm well over 400,000 copies. I mean, it just sells
Wow.
20 or 30,000 copies a year. And yeah, so there's some definitely evergreen titles, and that's what you, as an arranger, you look for, and if you can freshen them up. And so yeah, and Hal Leonard is great. I mean, I have access to all the Disney titles. So I mean, that's tremendous. I really, every title except anything from Warner Brothers. It's EMI, all Joe Beat, Sony. It's a tremendous amount of music I have access to
Wow.
arrange.
Wow. So that is just a lovely part of each year, or that's something that blossomed and you're letting kind of mature while you
No,
do other
I
adventures, or
I continue to do about 15 to 20 arrangements a year, so you keep supplying the catalog, and it'll vary depending on, like, this year will probably be a little bit less because I had so much writing to do with Six Flags, but then next year I'll bump back up, and it's and then teachers know what I do, and they hopefully look for my name, or dealers do. And I'm very conscious of things like voice leading, and I want my arrangements to make the choir sound great. And if it doesn't, that's my fault.
well, I know what voice leading is, but our audience may not all know what voice leading is. So I just
Well,
sat
what
through
it
a composition class last week where they're trying to explain voice leading to a bunch of students. And I
oh
was kind of laughing. Voice leading. How would
yeah.
you?
Well, yeah, voice leading is it makes it easier for singers to sing. Okay, so instead of having a part da oh, that's harder to sing. But da 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 da. So you make it as melodic as you can, the harmony parts, so you're still trying to achieve great harmonies, but make it as singable as possible, and then
So the
that
poor
leads
altos
to
and tenors aren't stranded someplace and cursing you out in the middle of
yeah.
rehearsal.
Well, and poor altos, they're the ones who kind of always get that fourth extra note, and but you count on them being great musicians. So and you
and
and you throw them
patient
a
and
melody every so
patient.
often.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have a lovely interweaving of adventures, and for a lot of our guests, they kind of bounce, and you've threaded. I mean, in many ways, you've got a beautiful long run of doing sort of iterative adventures that have continued.
Hmm.
How long have you been with Hal Leonard now?
Well, almost 40 years. Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's such
Yeah,
a long relationship in this space.
yeah, it is. And a lot of times I tell young people is the importance of being helpful to everybody along the way. Because years ago I just had started arranging for Hal Leonard, and I had one of my instructors say, "Oh, I've got this grad student, and he needs some extra work, and I think he's really excellent." And so I brought him on. He helped fill in some score. That's back when we still worked in pencil, and he helped fill in some scores and taught some vocals for me at my theme park shows, and then today, he is actually the president of Hal Leonard and has been
Oh,
for the past
wow.
10 years. Yeah. Got a gentleman named Larry Martin. And yeah, so, you never know people you help out along the way, what their careers will do. And, there have been times that's been helpful that Larry and I go way back. And he was, come time for a contract, I mean, that's a helpful thing to have given work to the company president. So
So how has your work expanded and changed in this time? So you come into it, used to have to do, of course, pencil
yeah.
and staff lines. So you're now living in Sibelius. You're
Actually, Finale software,
finale.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're a competitor, but the publishers or the typesetters prefer Finale. And yeah, so I've been on Finale since 1996, 97, and haven't stopped. And that's so you get very fast at that. But I think for me in my career, what's expanded is I think back there was a time I was just creating music soundtracks for theatrical shows or theme park shows. And in Warner Brothers bought the Six Flags parks, and at that time they said, "Well, we only want to deal with turnkey producers, outside show producers." So they disbanded the internal Six Flags show production group,
Oh,
who
wow.
I worked for. And
Right.
I thought, well, gosh, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, maybe I should become independent turnkey producer. So
Sure, take me out. Let me start my own company.
yeah. So I thought, well, let me just, but it was kind of because I wanted to keep working. And you just like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. And so sure enough, I got an opportunity to produce one show the following summer. And then that really took off. That's when I formed Wow Entertainment. And that's launched me into the show production business. And so that really changed the orientation of my business at that point.
So you have gone from being a employee to sole proprietor to now having full-time and part-time staff to make all of these things happen. You started out telling us how many different shows you launched this year.
Yes, that's exactly right. I have some full time and then some part time. I have a network of creative vendors, from costumers, lighting designers, musicians that I hire as needed. So it operates a lot like an advertising agency. You bulk up when you've got the accounts. When you lose an account, you hunker down, and so yeah, it's very similar to that. So there isn't a lot of
So
elements of running a business. You've got to be aware of the bottom line and projections, what kind of money you need to keep going, and
And you've had to pick up new skills, right? So you were doing theater, more full theater, and then you went into piano and music composition, but now are putting on whole shows. So what other hats did you have to learn to put on, and what might have been some tripwires you might have tripped on as you were learning to build even more capacity?
Well, I would say, I mean, there have been a lot. Working with contracts and understanding contracts and what they really mean, and what certain clauses and things you need to ask for. Accounting, certainly, of you not only want to project what your income is going to be on a project, but then you have to keep accounting along the way to make sure that you met your projection. So, and they're a little bit, those are boring things, but you got to do it to stay in business. And because a lot of times the shows I produce, it's a particular park or facility will say, tell us, we want this show. Yes, tell us what it's going to cost, and then that's the money you're under contract to do, deliver this show for that amount of money. And so if you don't do your job correctly, you don't make that amount of money. But that's okay. My dad was an accountant, and I've had good friends who've gotten MBAs that I kind of helped, so I got around it enough that I was, able to figure those things out. And then, it's just experience, having done this so long and worked, I've written probably over 150 theme park shows.
Wow.
And multiple larger dinner arena attractions, and not only produce music, but also like produce those shows that you learn along the way, that things don't, it's like you've kind of, oh, I've been through this before, or I ran into this before. And so it's a craft in what you're developing. And the more you do it, the more you develop your craft. And, I work with a gentleman named Ken Billington on my lighting design, and Ken's a Tony Award winner. He's lit Chicago, and was most recently New York, New York. That was on Broadway. And he said, at his point in the career, he said, there's nothing really you can throw me that I haven't seen before. And just so all sorts of things, like we were working on a Halloween show, and I said, well, what about if we made the floor red? That would be great. And he goes, oh no, it lights horribly. Like he's actually done.
he's lived that dream before. He knows that's a problem.
It sounds great, but no, that's not going to work. So it's like, okay, you listen to the guy and learn from that.
Has the technology of what you're expected to do changed? I think of consumers and people coming who are used to looking at, let's say, Dancing with the Stars and seeing the video floor, or are people expecting different things because the tech of everything's changed?
Most definitely. And I mean, and you're, with not only how I write music, but how we produce it, combination of synthesized instruments along with live instruments. Now, like we're in a final tech week or for production of a show, it's we have time code that, so the one time code runs the music, but it also runs the video, runs the lighting cues. So it's very technical, and but it also enables you to do pretty amazing things visually. So you get used to it. You learn along the way, and I've always taken a philosophy of hiring the best people possible, working with the best people around me, and versus a lot of times, people can hire their friends, or I've worked with so and so, but I've been a little more ruthless in that of just, no, I've got to work with the best people, because that's a reflection on me. So. And it's paid off. It's been successful to do work that way.
And we started out, we talked about the fact you're in Los Angeles and New York and in Texas, but you come to record in LA. So what parts of all of that now fit together? You're recording the pre-recorded elements for your shows, or you have a whole other line of fabulousness that you've got going on?
Well, what I do, I actually lived in Los Angeles for about 5 years, but went through the Northridge earthquake,
Hey, great time to be in LA. Yeah.
the Rodney King riots, and
Yeah.
I think the when I left was when O.J. Simpson was going down the highway in the white.
It was time to go. If he's going to run the Bronco downtown, I got to get out of LA.
Yeah. So, but what I did learn so much about the entertainment business and the importance of networking and how to schmooze and all these things, and then I always found how the musicians were just so incredible and the singers were so incredible, and the best people accumulate in Los Angeles. And so what I did was I ended up moving back to Dallas, and which was much more affordable to run an office. And I had just picked up a producing job with Six Flags Over Texas, so it made sense. I was right in their backyard. But I continued to go to LA. And what's happening now technology wise is that we'll have pre-production on track. So a lot of times I'm doing a demo that is with electronics and maybe the vocals, as we're building the show, trying it out. And then I'll take those sessions, those layouts, and then I bring those to Los Angeles. And, now it's on a hard drive. And then you record real instruments and real vocals on top of that. Then I will bring it back to Dallas, where I'll have it mixed, and we tweak it and fine tune it here. Now, sometimes if with technology, it's been nice. I've been doing this for like the last 10 or 15 years, where if I'm too busy, I might just send my audio engineer out to LA, and then we work with a combination of programs that I can actually sit at my desk in Dallas and produce a recording session with the engineer in LA. So that's been a real time saver and money saver. And so I have those options that I can do that. And really now that's, so many voiceovers and things work that way all around the world, in fact.
Some of them spurred by the pandemic, by a lot of people having voiceover studios, not just in their closets, but expected to have them in their homes and to be submitting tapes that way. So yeah, it's changed the whole, that and Netflix wanting translations of so many shows, that there's so many little micro recording studios of people doing voiceover work here in LA. So interesting times.
Oh yes, it is. It is. Particularly you see that all over in LA. There's a realtor that just focuses on homes with studios, I think in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Houses that rock or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, that's fun. I like that. So did we leave any adventures out? We've covered lots of things with you. What have we not mentioned of your adventures?
Well, I one of the fun aspects of my adventure has been the opportunity to work with Dolly Parton, because she has a series of these dinner arena attractions in Pigeon Forge. And so it's the Dolly Parton Stampede and the Dolly Parton's Pirate's Voyage. So I've worked off and on with that company, and many times, Dolly will write a new song, or I get an opportunity to work with her in the recording studio, which has just been a tremendous thrill. Sometimes, she has a home in LA, so I'll record her in Los Angeles. That works out well, and so that's been a big thrill. And then I would say the other kind of exciting thing I've gotten to do was I actually co-wrote the title song for Disney's 102 Dalmatians, starring Glenn Close.
Oh, wonderful!
And I really haven't had that much chance to work with Disney shows, but my first opportunity, believe it or not, was the word went out in LA that Disney was looking for a dog song, to so open this movie. And a lot of people were submitting, but I knew somebody, who knew the publisher, and she and I co-wrote a song, and it followed it all the way through. And it was going to be the end title, and they moved it to the opening title credit. And that was, my first entry into Disney was like driving right onto the film production lot, and interfacing with them. And so that was a real thrill in my career. And I haven't worked with Disney since. So it was a little odd chapter, but one I'm very thankful for.
Very cool. What do you see heading forward? You're in a business that is robust in a changing music world, where you've got great relationships. Is this a expanding space? Or are you going to get into these immersive performance spaces, or is this just sort of a happy, wonderful level of life?
Well, I would say this year has been tremendous and kind of really helped kickstart me back into show production and turnkey producing, and I really, really enjoy it. And I love the team that I've assembled to help me. So I'm really hoping to exploit that even more. There's a merger happening between Six Flags and Cedar Fair that should go into place in the 1st of March. And so they're going to combine, have 27 parks.
Wow.
So, I'm making a lot of efforts to reach out to them. And, I think things really, until the merger happens, it's hard for anybody to commit. But I'm real excited about that opportunity. And, it's hard right now I was looking at one time of trying to look at writing a Broadway show and mounting that. But Broadway is so backed up with so many great properties just looking to get into the city that I'm seeing now an opportunity of large production shows, but not on Broadway. You're looking for other venues for them, around the country to produce for. And then what I'm trying to do with my creative team is access the creative talent out of New York, because it doesn't get any better for live show production than the creative talent you have in New York, and just using that. So kind of having a Broadway experience producing, but looking beyond, the theater district of New York City.
That sounds fabulous. No, everything has been upside down from the pandemic, and then some of the realignment wasn't just coming back. It's like, having clogs in the arteries now where everyone's wanting to do things, and the economics have changed so gigantically, and people are wanting to put all the postponed shows and projects out. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, it really is. Really is.
So we are nearly at the end of our adventure here. What have we not talked about that you want to make sure we talk about?
Well, I would just say this. What we haven't really talked about, but is a key to my focus and what I want to do, is that I'm really trying to bring joy and entertainment to people. And as a producer, as I mount a show, I will sit there, like I kind of usually get a seat on the side of the theater and just look at the audience and try to read the audience as much as I can. And that's my job, is to bring them joy. Or if I mentioned with singing in a choir, is if I have a successful choral arrangement and the kids sound great, then all the parents think that's the greatest teacher, and the kids feel positive about themselves and performing music. So ultimately, that's my focus. That's what's most important to me, is bringing joy and entertainment to as many people as I can.
And hopefully that great arrangement also makes someone go, gosh, this was a great experience. Maybe I'd like to go into singing or music when I grow up. This has been a positive part of my life.
Exactly. That's what that's like the subconscious, or really what I'm working to do all the time.
Bringing joy through all sorts of, you probably touch more people through your music than most other people in the music space, because so much of your work is getting licensed into schools and and out to people on a regular joyful basis?
And I spend a lot of time on YouTube, and because it's now with Hal Leonard, my music is reaching around the world, and like a Christmas suite, which was more of a concert work that I had written. I listened to or looked at a production or being performed in South Africa or in Japan or Southeast Asia or Germany. It's just fascinating uh, to see performances of your music in all parts of the world. So it's a cool thing.
It's a cool thing. Mark, if someone would, who would you like to reach out to you, and how would you like them to reach out?
Well, I think probably the easiest way on my website, we mentioned just an email called info, at wowentertainment.net. That's
Okay.
WOW entertainment.net. And that's the best way to reach out to me. All those come directly to my email. And I mean, it could be somebody who has a venue, who maybe wants to do a production. I have tremendous catalogs of shows that I could, offer to them. And let's talk. Let's get creative and see how we can work together. Certainly performers or people right now, like I'm really looking at a lot of specialty acts and people that trying to bring that into a musical theater setting with story. And so, yeah, anybody who feels inclined, if you've heard this and you want to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to get back with you. And I will, I read every email that comes to me. That's the great way to reach me.
Very cool. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. And I'm looking forward to somewhere in this Christmas season. We're doing this right now in December 2023 of hearing your music somewhere in all of these different adventures.
Well, thank you so much, Gigi. I really appreciate it.